should not use it to aim or to target any country, and then use the Mekong Peace Park as a hub to connect all Indo-Pacific initiative. So that is still a work in progress, I think, moving forward. So I think now it's 9 a.m., 8 a.m. Cambodia time. So I think.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Van Den. Yes, and should we wait 1 more minute, 2 more minutes, as some of us are joining? Let me check the list of invited guests.
Oh, Paul, you should probably give Honorable Eknat a quick call to make sure that he's a very busy man. It could easily skip his.
I just got I just got a communication from Honorable Eknat. He's in Singapore and he's just been called away to another meeting. So he sends his very good wishes and also his apologies for not being able to be present for this meeting. So yeah, he just sent that to me now. Sorry about that.
In this regard, Dr. Van Den, would you like to provide some welcome or opening remark, maybe briefly?
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Kum Long, for organizing, moderating this second Sherpa meeting. And very good morning, good evening to colleagues and friends from UPF. You are the core experts, intellectual drivers of the process for the World Summit, which take place on the 11 to 14 next month. So briefly, with regards to the key deliverables of the World Summit, we intend to issue the resolution. We already added inputs to the draft resolution that we prepared together between the Cambodian government and the UPF. And some of the key highlights of this draft resolution. First is the kind of the adoptions of the concept proposal on the two state, one nation. Two state is because it's quite practical that it's impossible to have a one state on the Korean Peninsula, but they still can have one nations on the Korean Peninsula. So that it is something we need to elaborate. And the concept proposal have been drafted. So Dr. Kim Long is the main architect of this. So he can share with our key experts for further inputs later on. Second highlights of the draft resolution is the possibility, explore the possibility of changing the peace guardians at the DMZ to be non-military personnel. This is inspired by the Cambodia-Thailand border disputes. So after the court rulings, they decided to put only police forces to monitor the border, and we call it the non-militarized zones to maintain the ceasefire, not the military forces. So that is something that it was exploring, and Prime Minister very keen on pushing this forward. Third highlight and deliverable is to transform the DMZ into a cultural corridor and also economic corridor. So that is something that can be possible if there's some bilateral agreements and support from key stakeholders. And the fourth one is the idea of having this creating of a special committee from our networks in order to work on the Korean unifications. So that is perhaps the four highlights of the resolution. With regards to the another concept on kind of a separate concept on two nation, one state. two-state, one nation, then I think this is something we need to further develop, because now it's still in very early phase or nascent phase in developing this concept. So that would be one of the proposal as Cambodia as a co-chair of the World Summit, to make it as a kind of a institutional legacy and for the Korean Peninsula. And then the Mekong Peace Park, we will elaborate with the team with regards to the progress of developing Mekong Peace Park. It will be a landmark project of UPF in the Asia Pacific region or Indo-Pacific. So hopefully a significant progress will be made before the World Summit, so that Prime Minister and UPF can announce some of this Mekong Peace Park at the World Summit. Saito-san and Mr. Sopal, I think they are well informed because they are work on the ground, so they can help us understand better. So the objective of this second Sherpa meeting, learning from the first Sherpa meeting, the first one mainly focus on the general landscape of the region and the peace proposal for the Korean Peninsula. And for the second, we focus on reunification. What are the pathway that are possible or low-hanging fruits that we can develop together to reunify Korea, so that we move specifically to reunification proposal and pathway. So that is the objective, and we will solicit inputs from this dialogue Sherpa meeting and submit to the co-chair from UPF and also Prime Minister Hun Sen as a co-chair as inputs for them to lead the World Summit. So once again, thank you, and I've seen we have already all the experts are already here. So I think Mr. Yara just joined in. So we leave the floor back to Dr. Kim Long. Thank you very much.
So, thank you so much, Dr. Vanrud, for your opening remarks and for providing, the clear picture of what we are going to do today. And secondly, I would like to extend my thanks and gratitude to all our distinguished speakers from the UPF global family. We apologize at the same time for giving you a very short notice of the invitation, but we appreciate your time and insight to the second Sherpa meeting. I think all of you will make a lot of important contribution to the World Summit 2022, because your input, your insight will be collected and then will be used somehow, some part, somewhere where consistencies and the effectiveness will be enhanced to input all of those into the resolution. We call it a Korea Resolution 2022. That is one of the most important outcome of the World Summit 2022. So thank you so much. I think His Excellency Suhyara will join later on. I think he's here, but we will invite everyone to talk, to share your perspective. And before I show you the flow of our Sherpa meeting, I would like to touch on a little bit about the theme and the topic that we are going to talk. The theme today is about two state, one nation. So two states refer to the two Koreas, and to promote the spirit of being one nation that share not only the resources, the cultural root and heritages, but to jointly promote the national interest of the two Koreas. All of these will become the foundation for peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. So the two-state, one nation framework use a lot of things. Culture, is a part of those elements where you going to use as a tool to bridge the two Koreas. But more than culture, we use infrastructure, we use humanitarian cooperation, cooperation in the area of education, in the area of mutual trade, bilateral trade between the two countries. So the purpose of today's meeting is to galvanize efforts, build synergy among different initiatives and activities that come up through with our through our discussion today. We promote the people-to-people connections, people-centered cooperation, and also infrastructure development to serve as a bridge of trust and opportunities connecting the two Koreas. Also, we aim to raise the relations between the two Koreas to a qualitatively new and a new level on the basis of friendship and brotherhood between the two Koreas and people, such that all our initiatives will serve the interest of the two countries and people, and also to promote peace and stability, not only in the Korean Peninsula, but in the Asia Pacific and beyond. The last point is to promote the combined capabilities and potentials of both countries in all areas, including political, economic, cultural, humanitarian, healthcare, education, social fields such as youth and sports, for that purpose, which is the purpose of promoting people-centered cooperation, people-centered development. So what are the expected outcomes of our Sherpa meeting? There are 4 main outcomes we would like to get. The first one is to seek your inputs and insight based on experience, practical experience, as well as your wisdom. And the second is to input all of those into the resolution. Yes. So for the outcome of the two-state, one nation concept is to promote mutual respect, mutual trust, mutual understanding, and mutual interest for peace and prosperity. And we call it the M4P2. The second is the shared cultural values and identity will be promoted so that the gap of trust and differences can be gradually narrowed down, and the cooperation opportunities between the two Koreas will be expanded, will be further explored and enhanced. The third is, as Dr. Van Der has mentioned, we would like to promote the DMZ as a peace zone where there will be no military personnel, but there will be peace guardians to replace military, because we call it the non-military, the DMZ as a non-military peace zone. The fourth is to have a wider range of opportunity, to promote a wider range of opportunity for the Koreans to share, their mutual sentiment, the emotional contact, and cultivate mutual understanding, as well as to expand their social economic development potential. I think from that comes to what the UPF has been doing, is to promote mutual dependence, mutual prosperity, for peace to prevail and to be sustained for year to come. I would like to brief the objective and the purpose here, and I would like to move on to the flow. We will invite Dr. Robert Kittel to talk first, and followed by Dr. Venus Agustin. And then I think we can have the Dr. Leg Tavi Termsakul from Thailand to talk. After the three distinguished speakers, we will have 20 minutes question and answer. So during the question and answer, we would like to ask my colleagues from the Asian Vision Institute and the Asia Pacific Secretariat think tank for think tank 2022 to take notes of the key highlight, the key points that we will put into a short summary as a outcome of the Sherpa meeting, and those points, as I mentioned, will be used for the draft resolution that will be adopted at the World Summit 2022. So after the question and answer, we would like to invite Dr. Gregory Stone from Australia to talk for 10 minutes. I think each speaker will have 10 minutes, and His Excellency Suhyara will talk after Dr. Gregory Stone. After His Excellency Suhyara, the Director General of the Asian Cultural Council, we will have another 15 to 20 minute question and answer. So the session will be wrapped up by Dr. Chiang Vanret, the President of the Asian Vision Institute and the Director of the Asia Pacific Secretariat for Think Tank 2022. So this is a introduction in how we are going to conduct the second Sherpa meeting. Before further ado, may I invite Dr. Robert Kittel. Robert Kittel, the floor is yours, sir. Please unmute yourself, sir.
Thank you. Just making sure you're looking at me. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kim Long, for your overview and introduction, and also Dr. Vanret for your invitation. I'm honored. We are honored. This initiative of UPF working with government is we've done it before, but not at this level. It's an exciting kind of adventure that we are taking together, and I am absolutely certain that it is a win-win policy. Before I go into my formal presentations, let me touch on this topic, 2 states, 1 nation. This is something that resonates very deeply with UPF. We would use different words, but to put it into kind of perspective that everyone can have some type of artistic relationship with too. And that includes, as you have mentioned, the history, the culture, the language, the cuisine, every area. It's been one entity, one nation before that. So we are honored to work in this area. And my focus of this presentation is going to be on the second part of our theme, a path to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And I've understood what you said before is that His Excellency Samdech Hun Sen has kind of been directly involved in forming the theme. I'm surprised and happy and honored that he has taken this time to be so personally and directly involved. And to me, that is an important component toward making us all more serious and also bringing really us all to a higher level of kind of thought and understanding. Let me share with you my brief presentation, and I wanted to focus on one point to emphasize that point, what I think is the key towards this peaceful reunification. Again, I'm honored to be part of this panel discussion. I had to ask Sopal what the meaning of Sherpa was, because I've lived in Nepal, and we know that the Sherpas are those people that guide others to the top of Mount Everest. So I understood that meaning, but I didn't understand the meaning here, but it has the same meaning because we're looking toward and climbing toward a summit, and that summit is the World Summit in the second week of February. 2 states, 1 nation, a path to peaceful reunification. I looked briefly at this publication by the Korean Institute of National Reunification. It is called A Global Expectation for Korean Unification, and I thought there are things that we can learn from there. This particular document focused not on the 6 nations, and they specifically avoided the 6 nations. They've dealt with those before, but it dealt with nations that are not part of the traditional dialogue among the 6 nations. So it looked at 13 other nations and tried to find understanding, consensus, and let them speak. It's a 400-page document. I didn't have time to read all of it, but I did go through it. In the introduction, I saw something I felt was very important for us. And it said, it is now high time for us to conduct more public diplomacy by devising a new and creative methodology. The global research project of this kind could be one of the most effective public diplomatic tools. And I think varieties of diplomacy, and now we're going to a larger platform as what is called here public diplomacy. At the end of this book, in their conclusion, this was what they had said: the blockade between tools is no longer considered as a regional issue within Northeast Asia. Widening recognition of the Korean issue indicates that it is likely to create more stakeholders who may serve either as diplomatic asset or as a constraint that will shape South Korea's latitude in planning the unification policy. Very pertinent. So they're calling for a wider range of stakeholders. And this initiative is one of those, and probably the primary one outside of purely kind of government diplomatic relations. In my presentation, to find the central point of this government NGO, government civil society initiative, I looked at 3 areas, and I'm going to combine them together in my presentation. Creating an environment for peace. Looked at 1, who has suffered for this cause? Who are the suffering people for this cause? Number 2, who are willing to invest and make sacrifices to bring it forward? And I think probably one of the key points are the personal relationships. I want to focus on what Father and Mother Moon have done, and I'm sure you know parts of it, but I think it's important to get a larger picture so that we can see the uniqueness of the role that they play. Father Moon was called really by heaven, or we can say called by God, to return to his homeland of North Korea. He fled North Korea, then wanted to return back to bring really healing and reconciliation to that process. He was imprisoned in North Korea and then suffered there for nearly 2 years and 8 months in a Hungnam labor camp, which we know is meant to be a death camp. In this picture, you can see the prisoners' daily workload. You know, with their bare hands, they had to fill 1,800 bags of nitrogen fertilizer. And Father Moon said sometimes he could see the wounds in his hands. He could see the bone through the wounds in his hand. When I went to Cambodia and I looked at the killing fields, I was shocked because these are the same pictures that we have seen as UPF members in North Korea. And Father Moon overcame, he carried the scars of being beaten and tortured throughout his life. And in fact, when he was on his deathbed and they took x-rays of him, his chest, because he had pneumonia, they asked Mother Moon afterwards, what were the scars inside of his lungs? And nobody understood that. And then they realized it's probably from this time breathing the nitrogen fertilizer that they had to bag at that time. The important thing is Father Moon did not carry resentment. He carried the scars, but he did not carry the resentment because he realized that will not make things go forward. That will just be kind of the victim mentality and keep things in the past. With this foundation, Father Moon reached out, first of all, to Mikhail Gorbachev in 1990. He has created a world foundation really to meet these leaders and to offer his support. This was the 11th World Media Conference in Moscow. Actually, I was there at that time. And the sole purpose of this program was for this meeting to take place. There was no guarantee that this meeting would take place, even when Father Moon kind of until the last minute, but finally there was a breakthrough and the heart of Mikhail Gorbachev was touched and this meeting was held. Following that, a year later, having reached out to the world level of communist leadership, Father Moon then ventured to North Korea in 1991 to meet President Kim Il-sung. Again, when he went there, there was no guarantee of a meeting. But again, through his really strong determination and his unyielding kind of heart and spirit, then it touched the heart of Kim Il-sung and they decided to have the meeting. Here is a picture of the end. This is the beginning of the meeting on the left side, and on the right side, you see the end of the meeting. Father Moon recalled the end of the meeting, and this is from his own words, from his autobiography. As we departed down the hallway, I held President Kim's hand. After I had gone, I was informed that President Kim Il-sung had told his son, President Moon is a great man. I have met many people in my life. None were like him. He is a broad scale of thinking and he overflows with heart. I felt close to him. It made me feel good to be with him. I wanted him to stay for a long time. I want to meet him again. After I die, he told his son, if there are things to discuss pertaining to North-South Korea relations, you must always consult and seek the advice of President Father Moon. So we are now at 30 years anniversary of this meeting, and that friendship, that personal friendship still lasts today. Father Moon lived for 92 years. And when he passed away, then the North Korean leaders sent this wreath in honor of his funeral ceremony. You can see on the right, if you can read Korean, it says Kim Jong-un. For the head of the North Korean Communist government to send this type of recognition to anyone from South Korea is unprecedented. Even more so, they gave Father Moon a medal and a citation called the National Reunification Award from the North Korean government. That's a brief history of what Father Moon has suffered in his pursuit toward reunification. Mother Moon, on the same hand, has also suffered greatly. This is her memoir, Mother of Peace. I'll read just a snapshot of what she experienced as a young child, a refugee fleeing North Korea to South Korea. As soon as I had crossed the bridge over the Han River, my uncle shouted, "Get down in your seats!" As I squeezed down on the floor at my mother's feet, a huge explosion behind us shook our truck. I turned my face to the bridge and witnessed the next explosion. I saw a light like a demon's burning eyes piercing the night. Countless civilians, as well as soldiers and policemen, were thrown about like plastic toys, flying everywhere, cast into the river below. A few meters had measured the distance between life and death. Our lives had been spared. They blew up the river again or the bridge on the river to prevent the North Koreans from easily reaching the borders of in this case, Seoul, the capital. On this foundation, we have all participated in the last World Summit. We're looking for the next one in just a few weeks after the beginning of February, the second week of February, World Summit 2022. We had 120 current and former heads of state attending that summit. There were 10,000 people in this room alone, 5,000, and then later on another 5,000 youth had attended. That was part of the summit. So altogether, 10,000 participants. This was surely the largest contact conference that has ever been held. 28,000 guests from the international 128 nations. This picture epitomizes what we are realizing now. Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen from Cambodia on Mother Moon's right, and His Excellency Ban Ki-moon on Mother Moon's left. So we are seeing bridges between East and West based on personalities. Again, here's President Donald Trump and Melania Trump sent a congratulatory card and a flower wreath from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. This was in commemoration of Father Moon's 100th birth anniversary. So in conclusion, the suffering that we have had in the past is not a basis for resentment or retaliation. It's actually a basis of bonding together to solve the problems. Not only, and I think this was the immediate bond between Korea and Cambodia. When I've been in Cambodia and I've heard the stories and listened to the, watched and seen and understood and tasted and experienced, then my heart bled really for the suffering of the Cambodian people. And I think it was that yearning for peace that the Cambodians have, and they realized and understood very quickly that Father Moon and Mother Moon are genuine, sincere, dedicated to this reunification process. Like the Cambodian government, they're willing to take risks. This is a risk for the Cambodian government. I think you've never done something like this. I know we have never done something like this. And in one sense, I think you're taking a bigger risk than we are because we've done it before and we know what it's like to kind of take risks. But we are honored, grateful, and humbled by really the cooperation and opportunity that we have to work with the government of Cambodia. And again, personal relationships, particularly between Prime Minister Hun Sen, Samdech Hun Sen, and Mother Moon. The one picture that I wanted to put here, which we've all seen, is when Mother Moon received the flowers on stage at World Summit 2020. And these were the flowers that were given to her on commemoration of their birthday. They had just sung happy birthday. And she immediately turned around and gave these flowers to Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen. This is heart touching. Everyone in the audience started to applaud. And this was unscripted, which makes it more genuine. And it was directly from the heart. It was Mother Moon's way to express her sincere and deep gratitude for the Prime Minister. We've gone through a number of different conferences before in Nepal and Phnom Penh. And then the Prime Minister honored us by again coming to Korea itself. So I want to return back to my original slide, public diplomacy. The global research project of this kind could be one of the most effective public diplomatic tools. This is the initiative that we are taking together. And it's this cooperation that will bring, I believe, great victory. My concluding slide, World Summit 2022, and we are approaching that, and this Sherpa second meeting is for that, offers a unique opportunity, an unprecedented of government and civil society collaboration that will, I want to emphasize, will generate a peace initiative yielding substantial progress in the stalled efforts lasting now more than 70 years. I've gone a little bit over my time. I apologize for that. I thank you for your kind attention at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your sharing of insight. And I think if I would like to summarize a little bit, public diplomacy is a key, and also three elements that need to be fostered in order to create an environment for peace. So one thing is to, from personal relationship, the personal touch. the heart-to-heart relationship is key, and also willingness to sacrifice. So what we are doing here now is a willingness to sacrifice. We contribute, we sacrifice the risk, but we aim for the bigger goal, is the peace and peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. And also based on the past bitter experience of Cambodia and South Korea, or people who went through the tragedy, of some kind of a genocidal regime, like in the case of Cambodia, or some kind of atrocities like a Father Moon, Mother Moon experience. So thank you so much. I would like now to invite Dr. Venus Augustine to provide his perspective and also his wisdom. Dr. Venus, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sir Ting Kim Long. Did I pronounce your name well? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank for this opportunity given to me to be one of your speaker for this very important meeting. So allow me to share. Can you see already?
Yes.
The presentations?
Yes,
Okay.
we can see it.
I will make it highlight. Okay, yeah, just a moment. Okay, here we are. So, my topic that was given is about building peace ecosystem in the Korean Peninsula, opportunities and challenges. This is something that I love because this is really my area where I focus on in my career as working in the academy. So, but let me quote this word that's actually as part of the focus on from the previous meeting, which says that peace shall only prevail if people are placed at the center of the peace process. Along this line, the ideals of peaceful coexistence, tolerance, and non-violence in the peace process are a must for the peaceful reunification of the two Koreas. This is amazing. And I can't find any word but to thank the success of our first meeting that led to this concept. So already Dr. Kittle presented this one, and I think I don't have to go into the details, but it was fully elaborated. But moving on, let me share this paper presentations by one writer, an introduction to the Korean startup ecosystem and the working toward normalizing the socio-cultural, economic, and security cooperation between the two Koreas that share cultural roots, heritage, is a catalyst for peace, security, and mutual prosperity. This, according to Professor Steve Cervantes in his paper, Korea's startup ecosystem is showing the world that it is no longer solely a conglomerated economy where a few global luminaries dominates the scene. The country has 11 unicorns and counting, etc., etc. No other startup ecosystem has reached the 10 unicorn threshold as quickly as Korea, if you consider that it began earnestly in 2013. Wow, that's just how many years ago from now? Sorry, I think almost 10 years, 9 years. You can imagine the progress. So Professor Cervantes said that former President Gun Hugh Park instituted the creative economy policy as a surefire way to create jobs through the government-driven startup development. So this is one of the program of the president, Park. And in previous eras, the Cebol provided one of the Asia's high standard of living, but outsourcing and automation have caused widespread early retirement and one of the highest youth unemployment rates in recent years. That's also the drawback. So in 2017, when President Moon Jae-in administration set out to do much the same, aside from renaming the creative economy to the peace economy, the exponentially raising funds from 1 to 4 billion US dollars annually. The creative and peace economies growing achievements are providing ample seed funding for early stage startups. There's no Asian or global comparison with regard to the amount of government funding. You can imagine the kind of progress and innovation created by President Moon. So, in his paper, said that peace economy policies sponsored government and private growth by organizing accelerators and incubators in co-working spaces. They have enabled Korea to become the undisputed per capita Asian leader in numbers. Wow, you can imagine that. And the policies have endowed only Korea's startup with support. Foreign startups also enjoy vis-a-vis funding subsidized co-working space use and targeted acceleration programs for foreigners like the K Startup Grand Challenge. And then you can imagine that all of those who participated, all the 40 startups received $10,840 funding, and the 20 highest ranked received another 10,840, and the top 4 of the 20 received prize money ranging from 6,000 over 4th place to $100,000 first place. That kind of program really become a trend. Okay. Above all, Professor Cervantes concluded that Park and Moon's administrations elevated public awareness around startups. And then Korea since transformed from staunchly conglomerate society into one that's welcoming of innovation in startup culture. So in my topic, which is economic system, the things that was really driven is the things that the two presidents provided that make Korea different from now. You can imagine the foundation that has been established. But what are the challenges? The North Korea-South Korea relation. North Korea-South Korea relations is something that's a part of our topic, and that's the reason why we are here. So in this throwback in 2018, Moon Jae-in was elected president of South Korea with promise to return to the Sunshine Policy. In his New Year address for 2018, North Korea leader Kim Jong-un proposed sending delegations to the upcoming Winter Olympics in South Korea. There's so much discussions, and then even to join together as a one team for the Winter Olympics. Following the Olympics, authorities of the two Koreas raised the possibility that they could host the 2021 Asian Winter Games together, etc. So you can imagine this this kind of relationship developed at the time in 2018 between the two Koreas. So in 2020, there's some challenge that came out. That was only last year. North Korea began cutting off all of its communication lines with South Korea. This came after Pyongyang had repeatedly warned Seoul regarding matters such as the failure of the South to stop North Korean expatriate activities from sending anti-regime propaganda leaflets across the border. And then the Central News Agency described it as a first step of the determination to completely shut down all contact means with South Korea and get rid of unnecessary things. The sister of Kim Jong-un, Kim Jo-jong, as well as the vice chair of the Central Committee of the Ruling Workers' Party of Korea, Kim Jong-chol, stated that North Korea had began to treat South Korea as its enemy. You can imagine that challenge. It was only last 2 years ago. Okay, a week prior to these actions, Kim Jo-jong had called North Korean defectors human scum and the mongrel dogs. The severing of communication lines substantially diminished the agreements that were made in 2018. However, even beyond that, there's so much, again, things that coming up. In June 21, 2020, the South Korea urged North Korea, this is the move of the South Korea, okay, to not send propaganda leaflets across the border. That request followed the North statement that it was ready to send 12 billion leaflets, which could potentially become the largest psychological campaign against South Korea. On December 14, 2020, the South Korean parliament passed a law which criminalized the launching of propaganda leaflets into North Korea. This ban applies of not only the large amount of balloon propaganda leaflets which have been sent into North Korea over the years, but also leaflets that had been sent in bottles in river which ran along the Korean border. Violators of the law, which went into effect 3 months after it was approved, face up to 3 years in prison or 30 million won or $27,400 in fine. So those are the actions of the South government. So in February 2021, South Korea continued to omit North Korea's enemy status from South Korean military white paper after downgrading the status of Japan. So in a statement made in October 4, 2021, that was last year, South Korea's Unification Ministry announced that communication lines between the North and South Korea have been restored. The reopening followed North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's vow to restart communication with South Korea. The two countries' militaries have also restored their hotline along the east and west coast, according to the South Korean Defense Ministry. This is amazing development. We are in a right track of our forum to make things the way how we can move on. So with the theme, 2 states, 1 nation, a path to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula, which have 2 points, the pathway to sustainable peace on the Korean Peninsula on the basis of having 2 Koreas converge in their mutual interest as a nation, and 2, people-centered approaches to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. I would like to focus on one of the thoughts that connected to this that may guide us on how we can contribute to the peaceful reunification of the North and South Korean Peninsula. So, reading from the memoir of Father Moon as in a peace-loving global citizen, page 263 to 269, which I would like to quote this important point. He said that when I went to North Korea, I thought of it as my homeland and the home of my brother. Okay, so I didn't go there with a desire to get something from them. I went with a purpose to share with them my heart of love. Okay, I went with a purpose to share with them with my heart of love. That's a very, very inspiring words. The purpose of love touched not only President Kim Il-sung but also his son. That's also what means by Dr. Kito. Chairman Kim Jong-il, since then and continuing to this day, we have maintained a special relationship with North Korea. Each time North-South Korea relations become difficult, we have played a role in opening the gateway. It is all based on the fact that I met with President Kim Il-sung, conveyed to him my sincere heart, and built a relation of trust with him. Trust. Okay? That is the important. of trust. And finally, he also mentioned that following my meeting with President Kim, we now operate the Pyeongwang Motors plant, the Putunggang Hotel, and the World Peace Center in North Korea. There are billboards for Pyeongwang Motors around Pyongyang. When the South Korean president visited North Korea, North Korean officials took him to the Pyeongwang Motors plant. South Korean business leaders who accompanied the president stayed at the Putunggang Hotel, the hotel that is made by established by father. All these projects are efforts for the sake of peaceful exchanges and unification of North and South. They are not being done to make a profit. They are efforts to contribute to the unification of North and South as an expression of love for the Korean people. So, based on this statement from Father Moon, I can sense, according to this topic that I just mentioned, building peace ecosystem in the Korean Peninsula, opportunities and challenges. Well, again, let me reiterate that two things that we need to consider, and I am very sure if we look into this, it is not through military that will solve the problem between North and South Korea, but people, public diplomacy, or people that has the heart. And two Koreas have the same culture, traditions, and I'm very sure if we can connect to that, surely we can contribute for the reunification of the North and Korean Peninsula because of the foundations of South economically that's been ready already, and North Korea, if they are open with such a trust that planted by Father and Mother Moon, then surely there will be a peaceful reunification of Korean Peninsula that also create an impact to the world peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Venus. Thank you for your enthusiasm and passion to share. And I think we are inspired by your sharing of those insights. And as you were presenting, if I may, I can summarize it into a couple of points. I think peace ecosystems that the two Koreas are being built through multiple frameworks and programs are very important. And then I just learned today that, you said South Korea has removed North Korea from the enemy list. This is the positive way, toward peaceful reunification. But I do concur. I think this is a very important point, and also the point concur with Dr. Robert's point that peace building process must be by the people, and by the people with the heart, from the heart, and also public policy. This is very important. And another key point is trust. So when we put people at the heart of the peace process, peace will prevail. And thank you so much. But we will seek your advice further after the Sherpa meeting. Yes. May I now invite Dr. Lek from Thailand to share your insight and wisdom, sir. The floor is yours, sir. Please.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim Long. First of all, I would like to offer my sincere greetings and thanks to the chair and the organizing committee of this second think tank 2022 Asia Pacific Sherpa meeting. Thank you very much for organizing this meeting and having me join this meeting today. My topic today is enhancing the culture of peace and tolerance towards peaceful reunification of Korean Peninsula. So the question is, how can we enhance the culture of peace and tolerance? According to UN resolution, a culture of peace is an integral approach to preventing violence and violence conflicts. and an alternative to the culture of war and violence, based on education, the promotion of sustainable economic and social development, respect for human rights, equality between women and men, democratic participation, tolerance, the free flow of information, and disarmament. Culture of peace. Another view is that it is a set of values, attitudes, traditions, and modes of behaviors and ways of life that reject violence and prevent conflicts by tackling the root causes to solve the problem through dialogue and negotiation among individuals, groups, and nations. Of course, we need to promote and enhance this comprehensive approach of the culture of peace. But what is the main barrier or obstacle among many of them? As you may know, the Korean War was fought during 1950 to 1953, and the fight ended with an armistice on July 27, 1953. But practically, the two nations are still in the state of war until now. Even almost 70 years after the armistice, there is still no declaration of the end of Korean War or any peace agreement or treaty yet. So it is very difficult to enhance the culture of peace while the two countries, the two nations are still in the state of war as enemy nations. It is almost impossible to talk and agree on disarmament and denuclearization as long as they are still officially at war with each other. How can they lay down their weapons and stop to develop more powerful weapons to win the war? How can they trust each other? In order to enhance the culture of peace and bring about the peaceful reunification of Korean Peninsula, I think it is necessary to officially end the so-called state of war attitude and mindset between the two nations. So I truly agree and support the call of President Moon Jae-in for the declaration of the end of Korean War as an important stepping stone towards peaceful reunification. During the 76th session of the UN General Assembly in New York, President Moon Jae-in suggested once again in his United Nations speech on September 21st last year that the two Koreas and the United States, probably joined by China, declare a formal end to the 1950 to 1953 Korean War. He said, I quote, "When the parties involved in the Korean War stand together and proclaim an end to the war, I believe we can make irreversible progress in denuclearization and usher in an era of complete peace." He also added that declaring an end to the war will mark a pivotal point of departure in creating a new order of reconciliation and cooperation on the Korean Peninsula. This would be his last speech at the annual UN session, with his single 5-year term to end in early May this year. His proposal for such a declaration was not new. He made the offer during the UN General Assembly speech in 2018 and again last year. But last year's proposal was delivered in a stronger tone and more specifically. I think he is really calling out for global support and the support from the UN and the allied nations. In my opinion, as long as the two nations are still officially in the state of war, it is extremely difficult to enhance the culture of peace between the two nations. Therefore, getting rid of the state of war between the two Koreas is strategically a good and important practical step to get rid of the culture of war and violence, or the mindset, the attitude, the mentality, or the concept of violence and violence conflicts by military means of war against the enemy nation. And with this kind of change of mindset between the two nations, then both sides can start to tackle and solve the root problems through dialogues and negotiations and through many kind of exchange in terms of economics, social development, and etc. Then, through this way, we can promote and enhance the culture of peace and non-violence, discussions and dialogues with tolerance. Therefore, in conclusion, to serve the purpose of this meeting, I would like to make a very simple and clear proposal and suggestion. I would like to suggest that the UPF and all of us together uses this upcoming important World Summit 2022 to find a way to strongly support the call of President Moon Jae-in for the declaration of the end of Korean War in the UN and make it a reality, make it possible. In order to support the Korean government and the UN to break through this important barrier, UPF can work to mobilize additional unified global support to tackle this important strategic focal point. It can be another important stepping stone to enhance the culture of peace toward the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. This is not an easy task, but just the declaration can make such a great impact and great difference because it can change people's mindset and the mindset between the two nations. So hopefully, once the end of Korean War is officially agreed and declared, the Great War created by the so-called state of war mindset will eventually fall apart. As we have talked a lot already, both North and South, they are from the same blood lineage, same people, same race, same culture. So it should be possible. And the 38th parallel DMZ can turn into a peace zone. Then many bridges of peace can be built. And the springtime of peace will come even sooner than later. So I really think that this can be a very important key to unlock so many of peace effort that we are trying to create between the two nations. We need to destroy this wall or this kind of mindset of war between the two nations. So I think this proposal of President Moon Jae-in is a very important proposal, and he is begging and asking for support, and that's what we can do. And I hope that with our total unity and unified effort and all of our work together can bring about a great change that can turn around the whole situation in the Korean Peninsula. So that is my simple main point that I would like to contribute for today's meeting. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, sir. I think you have laid a lot of practical steps and insights. They are very useful, and I do concur with all of those suggestions, and all of the suggestions and proposals are well taken, and my colleagues will put into a short summary. But if I may, I would like to briefly summarize your key points. So the DMZ should be turned into a peace zone, and more peace bridges should be built in order to encourage the steps toward peace. But the most important thing that you would like to ask is to find a way together, by our colleagues here, by UPF network, to promote the call for the declaration to end the Korean War. That will open the new chapters of a culture of peace, tolerance, and nonviolence. And that will open more opportunities for peace dialogue, peace negotiation, and then interaction, as well as the connection between people and people. I think these are very important. Along the line, the call for, or the approach to end the mentality of war, or in the other words, the promotion of the mentality, attitude, and mindset of peace and tolerance will be the foundation for the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. I may not summarize all the points, but thank you so much. Now, I would like to open the floor for questions and answer, and also the comments and feedback from the participants. And may I now invite the questions or comments from the audience. And before that, I would like to remind that our second Sherpa meeting here is an exclusive closed door type, and then we follow the Chatham House rule. Thank you. Any questions or comment? I think our speakers can also ask question or comment, and an audience can also ask questions or comment.
Thank you, Dr. Ching Kim Long. I will wrap up at the end of our discussion, but I just would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere gratitude to our three speakers, Dr. Robert, Dr. Venus, and Dr. Lek, for your insights, and your story are very powerful stories. If we can integrate all these stories together to make it the most powerful stories with regards to Korean Peninsula. So I myself is a believer in the power of storytelling, because human civilization is about how we tell story and mobilize human thoughts and action together, because that is the best part of human being, is that we can work together at a massive scale across country, across nation, cultural background, political background. That is the best part of human being. But it depends on the story, and the Sri story that you share with us is very powerful, and I appreciate that. And perhaps I would like to volunteer Professor Greg to share with us your perspective. Thank you.
Please, Dr. Greg, I think we can move on. Or...
So you'd like me to make my presentation now? Is that right?
Dr. Wanrad, would you like to ask him for the feedback from the speaker? Or?
Yes. No, if Professor Greg has any comments or inputs on the Sri presentation.
Dr. Greg, Dr. Wanrad would like you to provide your comment or feedback on the three speakers, the presentation and the insight, yes. And we will invite you to speak after the question and answer. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you so much. Yes, well, I'd just like to thank my colleagues for making those excellent presentations and the work that you've done there. And I feel that I could see that there was a theme there, that it was also drawing upon the work, particularly over the last 30 years, of Father and Mother Moon and the UPF. And particularly, I think the person-to-person interaction that was really pioneered by Father Moon. I think for somebody that was imprisoned and tortured under the regime of Kim Il-sung in such a cruel way, to be able to emerge and find a path to love and find a path to make that amazing reconciliation, which occurred 30 years ago, is just an amazing model for us to look at. And I think that the speakers did a very, very good job at that. I'm also interested to make a little bit more input on that level as well. But I'll wait until my presentation to present those things. But an interesting thing, I happened to be in Korea at the time of, in 1990 and 1991, I actually lived in Korea, in South Korea. And I was attending the university, Sun Moon University, and attempting to learn Korean language at the time. But then we heard these amazing initiatives that were taking place. First of all, in what was then the Soviet Union, and Father Moon meeting Gorbachev and making this amazing friendship with him, embracing him. And then that continued on, of course. Later, Gorbachev attended several of our events and even went to the home of Father and Mother Moon on occasions. But the following year was really quite amazing. There was so much tension in South Korea. Nobody no South Korean was actually allowed, permitted to actually travel to North Korea at that time. I remember there was a man who did, from South Korea, did go to North Korea, but he was put in prison for doing that. So in this incredible environment, Father and Mother Moon actually went to North Korea with their delegation and made that amazing progress. Anyway, there's very important things to learn, and I think particularly the paradigm with which they went in with was something new. There's something different, and that's what I think we have to analyze right now. We have to analyze how is that different, because we have to approach this North-South Korea reunification with a different mindset to the past. Because if we don't, we're not going to succeed. So I think what we're doing is examining particularly the internal mindset and the new paradigm that has to be built in order for this approach to be made and for us to be successful. Anyway, just a few comments. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Greg. I think your insights are very insightful, and along the line, because person-to-person interactions are also very important. and maybe changing the new paradigm, of how people perceive the war, or the new mindsets toward peace. I think is very important. May I invite the comment or the question from our participants? If you have any comment or questions, please ask directly, or you can raise your hand.
Thank you. I just would like to ask for elaboration. Dr. Robert mentioned about public diplomacy, and Dr. Venus focus on people-centered or people diplomacy. So any kind of similarity or any differences between public diplomacy and people diplomacy?
I think public diplomacy, from what I've read or understand, is going beyond the traditional kind of government to government initiatives. And I think they would incorporate what he is saying, people to people, but I think it's more of a focused, there needs to be a framework for diplomacy to work, and that framework traditionally has been government to government frameworks. But what they're called for is now a broader framework where we engage into civil society to make diplomacy work. And these are where we have found the breakthroughs. Sports events, we found a breakthrough in that, using that as diplomacy. Culture and arts, using that, exchanges, educational programs. And the one thing that is missing, in the North-South Korea relationship is really family to family. Still, the families are divided and they cannot meet after 70 years. And, their parents are died, but still the South Koreans would want to visit the grave of their parents. I mean, that would be deep in their heart. So these type of initiatives, but they've got it, rather than just the vagueness of, this is what people want, it has to be brought into a perspective so that it can be frameworked. And I think that's what they're asking for, is the framework of this initiative to expand beyond just, economic, military, political initiatives or, carrots and sticks. And there has to be this public initiative, and it becomes a personal initiative. Again, I think that will carry a lot of weight. Adding to that, I just want to mention one other point, is that rather than, we have now from Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen, his concept of 2 states, 1 nation. We should work on that and develop that. And you, from the Cambodian side, you've talked about culture and arts and history and language and things like that. We need to build on the common ground that is there, and that's to show them that common ground is more powerful than the political divide that they have. It goes deeper, it's longer, it's more ingrained into the people. And if we flush that out in our resolution and in the dialogues, I think that would be fertile ground for Dr. Lek's initiative. I think really is important. We've got to stop war. But before you stop the war, you've got to stop the hatred. And you've got to realize, well, we are one family. And so Father Moon would say, 2 brothers, 1 family. And Samdech Hun Sen had said, 2 states, 1 nation. That we need to kind of focus on that and bring that out, because these are what our respective kind of leaders are saying, and we need to support them in their initiative. So yeah, that would be my comment on that. So it's just a broadening of the diplomatic channel to include the NGO private sector initiative. Yes.
Thank you so much,
But in a
Dr.
framework.
Robert. Maybe Dr. Venus, the floor is yours, sir.
You're muted.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much, our respected moderator, Chen Kim-long. I agree with the presentations and also the opinion of Dr. Keto. But more than that, I look forward for the coming 2023 ASEAN Olympics in or ASEAN Games, SEA Games in Cambodia. Perhaps that can be a good chance to invite North Korean to participate or as a guest, and we can make some kind of sports event. I can propose Togilbudo as a part of the, as a guest. It cannot be perhaps an official, but can be one of the things that we can create some good relations already through sports. I'm just thinking about it because of these things that I just presented, of how we can make an ecosystem of approach that can bring some common understanding. Sports is beyond politics. Culture, arts beyond politics. So perhaps during the SEA Games, which Cambodia is the host on 2023, perhaps I recommend to have that part of the considerations that we can invite North Korea in that part of that games as a guest, or they can present or what, and then we can create some kind of culture through sports. Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Venus.
I comment on the SEA Game. So I think this is very interesting and a very practical suggestion. So we haven't had the practice of inviting a guest of SEA Game, but we can have a ASEAN Plus friendship, this kind of games, because it would be this is something. Please put into the report, submit to Prime Minister.
Yes.
To seek his comments on the SEA Game, and perhaps we call it as SEA Game Plus.
Yes.
SEA Game Plus. So plus here we invite Korea, the two Koreas. We invite China, Japan, and perhaps also Russia and the US. The six party talks of Korea. But at least we can bring North and South Korea, so that is priority. And if possible, we bring China, Japan, Russia, and the US.
Yes.
So can put as a special session on SEA Game Plus friendship kind of games.
Yes, thank you so much. I think before we move to the next session that is going to be presented by Dr. Greg Stone, I would like to highlight, the significance of the inputs that and also the clarification that has been provided by Dr. Robert and Dr. Venus. All of these are very, very helpful, and then they are in line with what Dr. Lek has mentioned and Dr. Greg has emphasized a moment ago. And then from all of these proposal, we would like to put them into our resolution. And from the resolution, we want to act on all of those commitments in the resolution or declaration that coming out of the World Summit 2022 to promote certain kind of actionable, feasible, very small, practical activities, I think. And that will be our milestones and also our the byproducts of what, I mean, not byproduct, but also the outcome of our second Sherpa meeting today. Thank you so much. I think in the interest of time, yes?
Could I ask to hear from Hajime-san? I would like to have his input since he has been listening on this meeting to have some.
Oh, yes.
If I
Thank
may.
you. Yes. Yes.
And yeah, for Paul as well.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you, Dr. Wanarit, Dr. Kim Long, and Dr. Lek, and Dr. Stone, and Dr. Robert Kitter, and Master Venus. Master Venus is actually my martial arts master. He's my master. And yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I little bit would like to share about the Dr. Kito presentation, and also I as long as I am the Japanese citizenship, and then also I used to have some experience to spend my life in Korea. in that time was still 1990s, and my Korean was when I go to the market and then speak with the broken Korean, and then one grandma is saying, "Oh, you are Japanese," and I say yes, and then she spit on me, my face. I really don't forget this experience, but I don't have anything to say about that. But to think about for the UBF initiative, actually there are many Japanese supporters. So like just now, Dr. Kite was saying, like before we unite, actually we need to forgive each other. So with this great initiative with many countries, and in my Korean life, that one who really helped me and comfort me with the people from the other nations. And in this point that I am really grateful with our Dutch Prime Minister's initiative in order to peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Actually, the main nation is not only for the South Korea and North Korea, but at least we need the many nations, maybe around 43, because when we growing up, also not we are growing up alone, but also we are growing up with the help of the many peoples. Through this, like we can take out for our barrier. Even sometimes my wife and myself is fighting each other, and then also we need some help from the others' advice. So we are supporting each other for the at least more than 40 people. So same in order to reunification, peaceful reunification of North and South Korea. I'm really grateful with some of the Prime Minister initiative, like try to create more nation to support for this Korean Peninsula. And then also I really grateful the initiation from the AVI that not only for the Korean Peninsula issue, but also Afghanistan and East Timor and with the Myanmar, like with this vision of the peaceful reunification of North and South Korea, but also we can apply this for the other places. And then also I am really grateful to some Dutch Prime Minister that the very next day that he is coming back from Myanmar, I saw him in Batamon. In that time, I was in Batamon just with the other work, and then just he came to Batamon. So and to see the people. Actually, that time was a kind of opening the road, new road, and so it is really important that working in the very ground, to see the people and work together with the people in the very front line, because sometimes Prime Minister is the one who know the people's painful heart, like Father Moon. So that's why I can understand this initiative. So that's why I think we are the supporter. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Saito-san. I think.
One more thing, sorry. Also, the Master Venus is talking about the SEA game. And a little bit, we used to talk about this one in our meeting, that we want to initiate with the art and sports together. So that's why I am really exciting with the Dr. Wanari opinion that maybe we can prepare for another phase of the SEA game. That also I hear that some Prime Minister is talking about North Korea to inviting for the SEA game. I'm not sure he speaks in Khmer, and I not listen 100% what he say, but something like that, what I heard. So I think the important thing is also we try to combine with the art and culture and sports, to proceed. And then like Master Venus is saying, actually my difficult Korean life, my martial arts training was really helping me to stable my heart. So I am really excited to hear that opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Saito-san. And yes, we build peace by forgiving we don't forget, but we forgive with tolerance. I think that is very important. And for Cambodian too, we have a maximum amount of tolerance toward the genocidal regime. And then from that on, that was formed the foundation for what have been called the peace process in Cambodia that started in the early 1990s. Yes, and until now. And I'd like to echo what Dr. Vanrat has mentioned. I think the personal stories that you have shared are very touching and very important. Maybe one times in the future, in the very near future, we can combine all of these stories and put into one publication as a result of the Sherpa meeting, and also, to substantiate the significance of what we have been working together toward the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. Thank you so much. May I now invite Dr. Greg Stone to give his talk. Dr. Gregory Stone, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Just like to I'm going to share my screen, just one moment. Can you see the screen or not yet?
Not yet, but I think it's it started sharing, but
Yeah,
Yes,
it doesn't
I
seem to
think
be sharing well, Norman. Not sure, I'm doing something a little bit wrongly.
yes,
Maybe
it is starting.
Oh, is it? Okay, just one
Oh,
sec.
Could you share
again.
one more time, please?
Okay, this one. Share. Oh, okay.
Yes, yes,
That looks
please.
good. Thank you so much. Okay. Yes, well, greetings once again, everyone. I want to give special thanks to Dr. Kim Long and also Dr. Van Rith and the organizing committee of the Asian Vision Institute. Congratulations on organizing a successful second Think Tank 2022 Sherpa meeting. Thank you also for the opportunity to say a few words. So the topic that I have been given is proposals for mutual prosperity for humanity through universal values and interdependence. And this talk will focus a little bit more on the big picture, as I indicated before, the framework within which we consider approaching peace on the Korean Peninsula, I think is really, really important. We need a transcendent ideal, a super-religious, supranational movement that transcends the divisions of our present world. When we look at our world, just like the Korean Peninsula, our world, broadly speaking, is divided. It's divided by race, religion, nationality, ideology, differences of wealth, technology, access to education, medical facilities, and so on. There are many divisions in our world. And we pursue our own interests, whether they are national interests or the interests of an ethnic group or any particular allegiance to which we have. And then we easily fall into conflict. We fall into fighting against others, competing for land, for resources, and so on. And this has been a story of human history. And unless we move on to a different paradigm, we are not going to be successful at building peace, either on the Korean Peninsula or anywhere really. So this is why I feel it is very important that we consider a broad overall transcendent ideal, if you like, a new paradigm with which to approach North-South Korea, unity. I'm going to quote from Father Moon, founder of UPF. This is in his writings on philosophy of peace and how peace can be realized. Let me quote. I am connecting all things through a super-religious, supranational ideal that transcends the United Nations. The contemporary world lacks a transcendent ideal. There is nothing that can cross the barriers in the religious realm or national realm. To talk of transcendence is to talk about the peak realm where we return to God. I use the headwing ideology to transcend the thought of the left and the right. Headwing thought deals with the world by placing God at the absolute center. Neither the religious realm nor the national realm offers any match for it. We need a way of thinking that goes beyond the barriers, a unified culture that goes beyond the barriers. It is the realm of the culture of heart, and its connection requires perfection in front of God. So when we look at the term transcendent, it's described as in the dictionary as beyond or above the range of normal or physical human experience. Supranational, outside and beyond the authority of one national government. Super religious, transcending religion. So we need to, in order to begin to address the initial underpinning conflict between North and South Korea, we have a huge ideological gap there. One is like a left wing based on Marxism, Leninism, and sort of materialist philosophy. We have South Korea, which is based on democratic values and so on. So we can't approach the conflict on that level. We need to rise above that level with what Father Moon describes as headwing thought. So it's also the case with any division in the world, as with the national, religious divisions, racial, etc. So if we operate just on this level down here, it's very, very hard to make a lot of progress. So this is why we need to move our thinking higher. To put it in a different way, headwing thought is above left and right and encompasses the concepts of interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universally shared values. It takes on a parental position, seeking the whole picture, understanding, loving, embracing, and guiding both children who may be in conflict. So when we talk about left and right, in this way of thinking, they're in the children's position. So if you have a family where children are fighting, then it's very hard for children to resolve this, because their thinking is different. They're so much involved in their own certain perspective. But the parent comes along. The parent is the one who loves all the children, who appreciates their value. And then with that kind of heart, and with that kind of experience and understanding and parental perspective, the conflicts can be resolved. So this is what I believe is required, and I think this is definitely the approach that Father and Mother Moon have taken, and this is why they've been very successful in the past. So a clear example of this was their approach to the United Nations itself. So Father Moon examined the effectiveness of the United Nations, which was formed in 1945 after the Second World War with a vision to stop wars. But so many conflicts have continued since 1945. So he looked at the very structure of it and he said that there's something lacking, there's something that needs to change. So he put forward a proposal in the year 2000 for some kind of a restructuring, which illustrates this point of a transcendent ideal component. So this is the quote that he gave 18th of August 2000 in the General Assembly room of the United Nations in New York. He said the following: world peace can be fully accomplished only when the wisdom and efforts of the world's religious leaders, who represent the internal concerns of the mind and conscience, work cooperatively and respectfully with national leaders who have much practical wisdom and worldly experience about the external reality or body. In this light, it is time for us to give serious consideration even to the prospect of restructuring the United Nations. For example, perhaps it is possible to envision the United Nations as a bicameral institution. He goes on to say, we go, next slide. The existing United Nations structure, composed of the national representatives, may be regarded as a Congress where the interests of each member nation are represented. However, I submit that serious consideration should be given to forming a religious assembly or council of religious representatives within the structure of the United Nations. This assembly or council would consist of respected spiritual leaders in fields such as religion, culture, and education. Of course, the members of the interreligious assembly will need to have demonstrated an ability to transcend the limited interests of individual nations and to speak for the concerns of the entire world and humanity at large. The two chambers, working together in mutual respect and cooperation, will be able to make great advances in ushering in a world of peace. The wisdom and vision of great religious leaders will substantially supplement the political insight, experience, and skill of the world's political leaders. So he saw that the United Nations, as structured at that time, was to do with like a representative of the different nations meeting and competing for their own national self-interest. But we're dealing with a world, we're dealing with problems that are now affecting the entire world: climatic change, pollution, food resources, water. Everything is affecting everyone. How can we deal with it if we're just working on this sort of limited national self-interest level? We need to have people, we need to have a body that looks at the whole world and says, wait a minute, we are one human family. We have only one home. We have to deal with this together. We have to unite together and go beyond our differences with this new kind of a paradigm. So that was really what he introduced at that time. So the peace building on a global village and a multicultural society, how can that be done? He said that faiths must work together. Faith and politics must work together. Left and right in politics must work together. And I think also we could add government and non-government should work together. And thank you so much for the Cambodian initiative to work with UPF on this level. So the guiding principles then, which come from this new paradigm, this kind of transcendent paradigm, is that we are one family under God. Now, I know people view God differently. That's fine. That's not really the issue. It's something which, people have different ideas about, but we need to respect each other's differences, but come to the understanding that there is a moral and a spiritual imperative which we all value, and on one level or another. Secondly, the highest qualities of a human being are spiritual and moral in nature. The family is a school of love and peace, and practicing the ethics of living for the sake of others can reconcile the divided human family. And lasting peace cannot be achieved through political compromise alone, but must involve a commitment to personal change. So, using this more, comprehensive, transcendent idea, UPF puts forward the path to world peace in the following terms. It's saying that there are 5 requirements that are needed for world peace based upon this universal values, universally shared values. The first one is, yes, there is like the first principle is that God is the parent of humankind. Now, no matter what name you call it or what kind of perspective you have on it, there is a transcendent kind of overall creatorship of this vast universe, which we didn't create ourselves or this universe. There's something much bigger than us. So that is what we could call, you know, the parent of humankind, if you like, or the original cause of humankind. And from that, we get the kind of the moral and spiritual values that come from the various beautiful faith traditions of the past. From that, we can value compassion. From that, we can value righteousness and justice and truth and true love, you know. That's where it comes from those kind of transcendent ideals. The second principle, humans are essentially spiritual in nature. This gives a kind of a priority that while from the point of view, we have a mind and a body. So the body, certainly we need food, we need shelter, we need comfort and so on. We need money for our physical well-being. Otherwise we cannot be happy. But at the same time, our original mind, our higher mind seeks truth, beauty, goodness, and love. And we certainly cannot be happy without that. So that kind of inner aspect is in the subject position with respect to the physical well-being side of it. And if they're combined together well, then we can be happy and humanity can be happy and everyone can be happy. The other very, very important component of peace building from UPF perspective is the family. Because this is a transcendent ideal in itself, because everybody comes from a family, no matter what culture or religion or background you come from. The family is a common point. So marriage is a sacred institution and the family is a school of love. So this is, of course, where the very important virtues are learned, the virtues of children's love, giving rise to respect, gratitude, and filial piety as a basis. The virtues of sibling love, giving rise to harmony and purity, learning how to share, learning how to cooperate, learning how to deal with somebody who's different to yourself and work with them. The third one is, of course, husband and wife relationship. So here the commitment and the fidelity. Of course, UPF promotes the ideals, which pretty well all religions do, of purity before marriage and fidelity within marriage, to bring that stable, unifying basis for marriage and family. And then the fourth love is, of course, parental love, which is kind of the highest one, which involves investment and compassion and truly self-sacrifice. And each of these kinds of love, children, siblings, spousal and parental love, more unselfish and responsible the higher you go up towards parental as being the most unselfish one of all. But this is also very important for society and the structure of a society itself. Why? Because that is where we learn how to relate to other people in society. So if the families are stable, then we learn how to relate to our peers in our workplace. We learn how to work with our leaders in our nations. We learn how to work with younger people and subordinates and so on. So this is the learning place for social stability and ultimately world stability, because the concept we're talking about is one human family, one family of humanity. Where does that come from? It has to begin within each family. So that's where it begins. So the promotion of the family is a very, very strong part of course, the approach of UPF and Father and Mother Moon. It's the cornerstone of world peace. So the family bridges cultures. Peaceful families support peaceful nations and the basis for empathy of all people. So the fourth principle, living for the sake of others. And this is a very, very important peace building component, which all religions have emphasized, basically the same principle, that we sacrifice ourselves for the other. So the peaceful reunification of North and South Korea, this component must be there. And I would say because South Korea is much wealthier, you know, and higher levels of technology and so forth from the North, definitely that is a very, very important beginning point to be able to give and to show genuine love and concern through this way. And this is where it will begin to open up the path to peace in North Korea. So, yeah, so the same principle where the individual sacrifices for the family for the community for the nation, the nation for the world. This is a universal principle. This is one of those universal shared values that must be incorporated into the peace building process. So finally, then, I think the interreligious cooperation is essential for world peace, going beyond all those barriers, and particularly that ideological barrier, how we can operate on a higher level to integrate North and South Korea through though they're ideologically very, very different. So definitely Father Moon was ideologically very different to Kim Il-sung. Father Moon believed, as a religious leader, you know, he believed in God so deeply. And Kim Il-sung was obviously an advocate of Marxism, Leninism, which is a materialist-based philosophy. Yet, that love was amazing, the way that they were able to embrace, and not only a lifelong friendship was established at that point, but intergenerational friendship, and it's still going on. So this is, I think, just highlights the very, very great importance of this transcendent view that I began speaking about. The path to peace must begin with a transcendent ideal that can overcome the divisions of our current world. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gregory Stone, for your sharing of insight. I think the point you have enlightened can be incorporated, you know, and then we can make it into some short sentences. And then I think they are in line with what we would like to have is, you know, the building from personal to family, to ethnic, to society, to national, and to the world, you know, the interest and connections. And we believe that, you know, we build family relationship as a foundation for peace in the society and peace for the nation. And then the connections, you know, between people through religions, through race, through different beliefs, and then that will form what we can lead, we can call a foundation toward peace. And then a path to peace, I believe, it must begin with the transcendent idea that can overcome the division of our current world. Before that, may I, before I give the floor to Dr. Wander to wrap up, may I invite our last speaker, His Excellency Suhyara, the Director General of the Asian Cultural Council, to give his talk and to share his insight. Excellency Suhyara, I think because given the interest of time, we can move. His Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning and good afternoon to all. Of course, I see Dr. Kittel is here, and as long as I see you, I'm happy. And we have all the friends. Yes, Dr. Gregor is here, and I listen to you very carefully. Luckily, I have attended the middle of your times of discussion because I had a prior engagement with Dr. Yun. Now about our preparation of the summit.
We could not hear you right now, Excellency.
Our time in order to draft one of the good and soft resolution, but doable resolution, very practical. That's I hope all of you, scholar, academician, and all the religious leaders can accept this kind of resolution, which is standing in the middle path that humankind is very well needed. And of course, we will focus on the matters of wisdom of Father Moon's. This is very important. Wisdom can create the vision. So wisdom create the vision. That's why we, from what you saw the last 50 years, and now our young generation have a new thought, what we can be done, what cannot be done. So we go on practical matters that's announced by the facilitator today, Dr. Kim Long, on the 2 state, 1 nation. This is the idea from one of our great leaders, which is, you already know, he's accepted to be the co-hosting for this World Summit coming this February. And his idea was straight ahead, and with during the conversation with Dr. Yun, let's be practical, pragmatic on this 2 state, 1 nation. 2 state, 1 nation mean a lot to all our peoples, which give justice to the one who sacrificed their life during the war, and also give the peace to the one who are surviving. So peace to survivor, those are the one North Korea and South Korea. And who are those North? Who are those South? They are Korean. So that's why we have an idea and initiative to say, let's accept the factor 2 state now at this moment. You can't do much, but let's say 2 state is a must, and it is recognized by United Nations. It's not Taiwan and China. It's not Germany, but it is Korea. So Korea has its own special characteristic, but they have also as well the 1 nation. So anywhere from here to toe is all the blood, and the body, the flesh is all Korean. So let's say 2 state, 1 nation is very symbolic. It could create a second wave of the wisdom right after Father Moon, who have passed away and devoted his entire life for the peace and reconciliation of this Korean Peninsula. And then let's work on the what is conventional mean, what is practical mean. So convention, we need a peace treaty. So we don't need just only a ceasefire. This is what we learned from Dr. Kittel. Yes, that's why we say, let's try to work together the rally of hope and work for the peace convention. But what is the meaning of the peace convention? During whether you achieve peace convention or peace treaty, you will achieve it or not, let's have the time to decide. But what we can do now, you have been calling DMZ, the militarized zone. You call it the militarized zone, but you have all the military full of cap, full of military wear, and then you call it DMZ, which is not right. So for us, DMZ means police, DMZ means security guard, DMZ means tourism, DMZ means cultural exchange, means meeting all the religion leaders where people and citizens can meet. So whatever, you cannot go to Pyongyang, you cannot go to Seoul, for some reason that those have to have a special permission, but let's have people all over the world to feel peace, real peace in DMZ. So DMZ, you only see police, you only see pistol, you don't see cannon, you don't see minefield. So that's why this is how we want to be more practical on that matters. Also, can both sides start talking about this kind of matters, because we experience this is our own matters when it happened between Cambodia and Thailand in 2008 and 2009, when we fought for one temple of Previ here. And we went to the International Court of Justice 50 years after the first decision was made in 1962. So this is the first ever case. It became a jurisprudence of the world justice, what definition of DMZ mean. So the Court of Justice decided to have a DMZ in Cambodia and Thailand, and they allocated a bigger space than Panmunjom is. So we had counted more than 20 square kilometers of free military zone. So immediately, Thai was rejected. They said, we don't accept this DMZ because it's the loss of sovereignty. But Cambodia say, fine, you accept it, you don't accept it. But the temple of Previ here, it is a culture. This is a property of humanity. It is inscribed in the World Heritage List. It is dedicated to Hinduism. But we are living now, but Hinduism was in the past. Cambodia and Thailand was one state. And now we become two states. So this is how we need to know and to understand. So finally, we accept one word of DMZ mean redeployment of troops. So this is the key successful, and I was the commander under direct command of Prime Minister Hun Sen to settle there. And we went to United Nations Security Council to ask for help. Security Council say, you don't have war plan yet, you don't have missile yet, like North and South Korea. You only have tank, artillery, and army, and parachuter. So you don't go to a very, what we call it, a cross-continental war. You are just between the two states, and you are brothers. So that's time I met Excellency Ban Ki-moon. I sang to him. Excellency Ban Ki-moon gave me 45 minutes to report about the situation. So finally, he said, before United Nations and UN Security Council intervene, can you settle within your family? And I said, yes, if you give us time, but we need your supervision, we need your witness, then we can do it. So I was trying my first, under the leadership of Prime Minister, is demilitarization mean no military, mean no artillery, no cannon. You can do whatever to manage the area. Half of it is Thailand, half of it Cambodia, but we all use police. Whether capital of Bangkok accept it or not, we use it redeployment, cell redeployment. So this is why is this word of the cell redeployment. Cell redeployment means trust. We don't know tomorrow or today or tonight you invade us with your military, but we are only police. We are only guard. So that's why DMZ become a real DMZ of Cambodia and Thailand now, de facto peace for human property, humanity, product of humanity. So that's why we say based on one culture, as a Korean, as a religion, and you have interfaith religions dialogue. So this is how we try to create something, a real doable job for this current generation. While you are waiting for the next generation to have a new solution, let's have it practical now. That's why so concept of this, it will also provide implication to our access way to provide humanitarian assistance, which is food first. As I always said from the beginning, food first, stomach first. When the stomach is filled, you can have a clear thought, a clear thinking. But when your stomach is not as empty, you always think negative. Kill first to live. So that's why this is how we're trying to promote. And thank you very much, Dr. Chimmanrat, Dr. Kittel, and all these scholars and academicians, and all these experts who are on board of this Sherpa meeting today. And Dr. Kun Wong for your great coordination. And yeah, we could see many of your friends and the face here. I could not mention all of you, but yes, because of my eye, I could recognize some part. But yes, Dr. Augustine, yes, you are here. You are the window of hope, your window of prosperity. So let's coordinate from Manila to create a real DMZ of South and North Korea. Whatsoever we achieve, it is the property of humanity. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for your very brief, powerful, and straightforward insight. I think you proposed to have peace that start from humanitarian response and cooperation, food security, human security, all of those, and making the DMZ as a peace area. I think this concur with what our earlier speakers have discussed from the beginning of today's session. I think we do agree that, you know, building on the foundation of brotherhood, like Cambodia and Thailand, we are brothers, and we are one segment of the humanity. We live peacefully together, and then making DMZ as area that people of both countries can cooperate, can advance peace and mutual prosperity through some practical steps and intervention is very important. So from what Excellency Suhajara has been mentioned, we will take note all of these points, and then we will highlight and emphasize more practical cooperation and activities into our draft resolution. And I thank you so much because I think some of our aims have an objective has been achieved, but may I now open the floor for a few questions from the audience, from the participants. Questions or comments are welcomed. The floor is open, please. So any comments or things to clarify? I think you can directly ask, or you can directly speak.
Thank you, Dr. Kim Long. My question goes to Dr. Stones with regards to the principles that UPF have been advancing over the decades. Of course, these are the core principles. But when it comes to communicate, how can we communicate this principle more effectively and more persuasively? So this is regard to the communication strategy that have been evolved within the framework of UPF, or you think we need to do more when it comes to communication strategy in order to tell these storylines of the key principle that you alluded earlier. So my concern is, can we communicate this principle better, and how?
Yeah, look, that's a really, really good question. Yeah, thank you for that. I'd like to hear also from the others, you know, but I really feel that it has to be communicated. We're advocating today like 2 state, 1 nation. So obviously there needs to be some kind of dialogue between the 2 states, right? So some kind of like UPF, what we've been doing, of course, over many, many decades is holding educational programs. When we worked with, say, in Nepal, there was a conflict and between, you know, various parties, civil war was going on, and we were able to make bridges, you know, and through the education process. I think Dr. Kittle would understand a bit more about that because he was directly involved with that whole process, which ended up to be extremely effective because now, you know, there's disarmament and there's one government, and you know, it's an integrated government, isn't it there? So Dr. Kittle, I don't know, over to you. How can we make it, how can we get this message across? Yeah.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Dr. Bonneritz, for your question. Very forward-looking question. What we did in Nepal is we saw an opportunity to use UPF as a catalyst to start dialogue. For us, the goal was dialogue, start talking. Because for 15 years, the 2 parties, the Maoists and the Democrats and Monarch, have been fighting. 15,000 people were killed. And so we used the UPF platform because we had networks in both camps. We had friends with Maoists and we built them stronger, and also friends in the Democratic and Monarchy. So for us, the key point was dialogue. And this meant that we had a series ultimately of 20 different education programs called SAPI, South Asia Peace Initiative, under Honorable Eknath. He was the architect of that, working with Ambassador KV Rajan. And we brought the different parties together, and Ambassador Rajan would coach us and give a kind of a theme that we would work with. And it really didn't matter what we talked about. That was not the point. The point was get in the same room, face each other, and start talking together. And that was the catalyst recognized by both, you know, the Nepalese and Indian government that kind of catalyzed what later became the peace process and ultimately led to peace. One other model that we're working with is in the Philippines, and that is called the Regional Youth Forum. And we're working with young people, so we want to prevent this from happening again. So again, it's an educational opportunity that we're using. We're working with the National Security Council, the National Youth Commission, the National Task Force, based on Executive Order number 70, and also the Department of Interior for local government. So 4 different government agencies. And we've had a series of programs, 17 different programs over the last 7 or 8 months together. And now the government says these, and it was based on exactly what Dr. Greg had talked about, the 5 principles of peace. And the government said, we like these, let's make the opportunity to bring them into the education system. And also bring it down to, rather than just the 17 regions, let's bring it down to the 81 provinces. And so it's kind of a, you prove your worth, and then that program will expand naturally. We don't have to force it at all. If it's valuable, people will see that, and it will move forward really in a very effective way. I want to just add one other point as I'm speaking. Dr. Kim Long, I like what you said, because you rephrased one concept that I said about, 2 brothers, 1 family. And you said we have to learn to forgive first. And when I heard His Excellency Sushara talk about forgiveness and the role that he played, these stories need to be told. This is a model that needs to be shared. You've got a model in Cambodia that works. And if the North, we can take these stories, Father Moon, when Father Moon went to meet Kim Il-sung, he went to Hawaii for the first time. And he spent, I don't know, a week or 10 days in Hawaii praying. He said, I have to be able to meet Kim Il-sung without any resentment in my heart. Then he was 1 week in Pyongyang in North Korea. And the only person that stayed with Father Moon 24 hours a day in Pyongyang was Mother Moon. And she later testified that Father Moon didn't even sleep for 1 week. He had done that in the communist prison camp. They tortured him. One of the tortures was you can't sleep at all. And so 1 week he never slept. So he said, I guess he thought I have to do that at least. So while he was in Pyongyang, he didn't sleep. And then one of his aides came to Father Moon later and said, how did you do that? How did you do that? 1 week you didn't sleep. And he said, that's the easy part. The hard part you should be asking me is, how did I meet Kim Il-sung without any resentment in my heart? How could I forgive him? And I think when you said, we need to forgive each other, these stories of forgiveness, the Cambodian story, Hun Sen win-win policy, the Cambodian-Thailand policy, Father Moon's life story, these need to be told, and they will be powerful. It will, more than that, people will reflect within their heart. What about me? Can I forgive? And it comes down to that personal level of forgiveness. So I really enjoyed this time together. Thank you, Kim Long, for rephrasing that in that very effective way. Thank you. Thank you, Greg, for your support in that area too.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. And then may I also invite Honorable Eknath Dakal. Are you here with us? I think he just joined, and he would like to mention, or he want to contribute. Honorable Eknath, are you with us? I think maybe he has left for another commitment. A moment ago he was with us. So maybe one more question from the audience before we give the floor to Dr. Wannerat to wrap up the whole session. And before that, I would like to inform that we will be sharing with you the draft of the 2 states, 1 nation. So we seek your further inputs to elaborate as well as to fine-tune the concepts. Yes, thank you so much. And also the key point of the discussion today will be put into a brief report, and we will seek your clarification, also for your further input as well, to fine-tune all of those. And most of the points will be discussed further and then incorporated into the draft resolution. So any further comments or questions from our audience or from our speakers? You can ask, you can comment. I think if there is no further comments, I think in the interest of time, may I invite Dr. Thieng Vaneret, President of the Asian Vision Institute, also President of the think tank 2022 Asia Pacific Secretariat, to provide the wrapping, to wrap up all what we have been discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kim Long, for moderating this Sherpa meeting and for your efforts in organizing this event. I would like to once again thank you, Dr. Robert Kittel, Dr. Lake, Dr. Augustine, Dr. Gregory Stone, Excellency Suhyara, for your contribution. This is a Sherpa meeting. As Dr. Kittel mentioned, we are the tour guide bringing our guests to the summit of Mount Everest. It's not easy, climbing Mount Everest is not easy. It takes risk and courage, and of course, dedications. So all of us here are those who take risks in a way, who have courage, and to bring others to the summit of the mountain. So that is a critical time. As Dr. Gregory Stone mentioned, the world is divided. I have studied international relations for the past 15 years, and I haven't seen any situation like this. This is very unprecedented, that the world is divided and geopolitical competition get intensifying. Young generation are very anxious according to the World Survey. And now World Economic Forum is ongoing in Davos. I have attended several sessions as a young global leader of the World Economic Forum. Indeed, we are living in a very dangerous world. But we also, as human, and we also as a family, we need to do something together to save this planet, to contribute to others. As one of the key principles of UPF, as Dr. Gregory Stone mentioned, we live for the sake of others. We don't live for ourselves, but I think what we are doing today is to do for others, especially the Korean people, because we are not Korean, but we are so caring about the Korean people, because that is one of the missions that our purpose of living is to live for others. And your contribution, dedication, I think will be recorded, at least in our family, UPF, and extended family of UPF, this contribution to peace, reunification of Korean Peninsula. And throughout this dialogue, I think we have come up with a very interesting initiative, and our Secretariat will have taken note of those ideas, inputs, and put it into a proposal and report and submit to UPF and Cambodian government, Prime Minister, with regards to the outcome of the second Sherpa meeting. And Dr. Kim Long is still drafting the resolution, so please try to include the key message that we have this morning into the resolution. And also some idea can be included in the two state, one nation proposal. I think the principles, especially with regard to the principle of UPF, maybe you can take some out of 5 principles. Maybe you can take 3 or 4 to put into the concept, the initiative of two state, one nation, and the mechanism to achieve this in a two state, one nation. I think we have identified several mechanisms, practical steps. So please include that. And I just would like to stress we need to improve this kind of stakeholder engagement strategy and communication strategy. Perhaps within our framework at the UPF and Asia Pacific
think tank secretariat, we develop a stakeholder engagement strategy. Dr. Kittel mentioned that the stakeholder now become more complex. Either they are, he used this term, either they are the diplomatic assets or diplomatic constraints. I think both. It's a nature of complexity because we are living in a multiplex world, right? So perhaps we need, next step is develop stakeholder engagement strategy, both the public, private stakeholders, and then how to connect these stakeholders, how to build a networks, a coalition among these stakeholders. And based on that, we develop a communication strategy. So now we have a network of stakeholder, alliance, coalition of stakeholder. Then we can develop our communication strategy in order to spread our message across the network. And this network is what we call, it can be a positive virus, you know. It's like a COVID-19, but in a positive way, right? It will spread very fast, maybe faster than Omicron through this network. So this is something that we need to do more because we have so many powerful stories, but a still fragmented story. If we can consolidate, integrate this story together and spread it out through the networks and extended networks, then I think we can make a big difference, a big impact and big change. So that's not for us, that's for humanity. That is the mission that we all are holding at this stage. So I would like to once again thank you and wish you all good health and happiness and success in your endeavor. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wanrat, and thank you everyone. But before closing our session, may I invite Honorable Eknath Dakal to give a few words. Honorable.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kim Long and Excellency Soswara, Dr. Cheng Banarit and everyone. So I'm not here to give a speech, I'll be just few seconds because we were together with His Excellency Soswara for a very important meeting. And then after that, I'm actually holding another meeting in my another device. So I just take few seconds just to say big thanks to all of you. Asian Vision Institute is doing wonderful job with Dr. Cheng Banarit. Every day they are working. I had the privilege being in Phnom Penh. I used to visit there frequently. So the office is fully mobilized every day for the preparation of World Summit and also various other preparations. So we are so grateful to Excellency Soswara and his leadership and entire team, especially our Prime Minister Samdech Hun Sen. It has been really wonderful partnership between Cambodia and UPF. So I look forward to seeing the outcome of today's second Sherpa meeting. And since we have only a couple of weeks to go for the World Summit, so I think we can really contribute well. Yes, 2 state, 1 nation. So that is the concept which recently given by Samdech Prime Minister Hun Sen, and also I think the similar concept that our founder, Father and Mother Moon, has been advocating since decades. So let's work together. Thank you so much. Namaste. Thank you, everyone.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the best. So, yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
So we would like now to close our second Sherpa meeting for the Think Tank 2022, and we wish you all the best, good health and greater successes and prosperity. Yes, thank you so much.
Great initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
Good time and Happy New
Excellency
Year.
Soswara.
Yeah.
Thank you. Was it Dr. Kim Long?
Thank you. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Dr.
So much.
Venus,
Yes.
Dr. Robert Kittel, Dr. Lek, Dr. Gregory Stone, Hajime-san.
Our pleasure and honor. Thank you.
Yeah, our pleasure and honor. Thank
Excellency
you so much.
Suhyara and everyone. Yes, thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
Cảm ơn Kim Long.